This is my worm deck. I would be using 3 worm links, the main meta draw card in here. Draw 1 for each end phase, including your opponent's. I would use Honest because all of them are lights, and it's a good supporter for this type of archetype. I would use Catacos at 2 because whenever it gets flipped, then you can add a worm to your hand whenever it gets flipped. That is 4 stars alone. That's a negative effect of it, but most of them are weak anyway, in stars. Worm Solid is a good card if you were able to get a lot of them in your grave. At 16 starting in defense points, but gains 100 for each worm in your graveyard. So it gets massive attack defense real quick. Worm Regua is alright beater, but it has a real negative effect. If it didn't get flipped, it doesn't get an attack. And if it gets flipped and doesn't attack, well, it won't be able to attack ever, and it can't go face down with its effect. But whenever it attacks, it can go face down at the end. It's forced to go face down at the end phase. End of the battle phase. Worm Prince. He works like Catacos, but it happens when he destroys a monster. And his negative side effect is that he kills himself at the end phase if there's no other worm out. Worm Boris is a good card from switching a monster from high defense to low attack, such as Defender. 27 Defender, 700 attack, wham, I attack, 700 points of damage. It's a sweet switcher. Worm Hope. I know he seems very weird, but whenever he gets attacked face down, we draw a card. And then whenever he's sent to the grave, he has a negative side effect to lose one of your cards in hand. But you get a pick, so that's actually somewhat of a bonus. Worm Apocalypse. He's like a mystical space dolphin, but a bit better. Because whenever he gets flipped, each time he gets flipped, he kills a card. But it's mandatory to kill a card. That's the problem. Worm Goose. Whenever a monster gets flipped, either by battle or a flip summon, then he gets a counter, and every counter gives him 300, and he's already a 15 beater. He can be bottomless, yes, but he can start out big and keep swinging. Worm Noble. He's like the magic cylinder of the deck, but it only does half the damage, not the full damage. And if that wasn't enough, he has 2,400 defense points, and he's a light. 1 tribute though. Mildrift. He's like Noble, but it equips to a monster. And every standby phase, including your opponent's and yours, it does 400 points of damage to your opponent, as long as it's equipped. Worm Queen. She's a good sacker and summoner. When it only needs 1 worm in attack mode face up to sack to summon the Queen. Then when she's summoned, once around, you can ditch a reptile worm monster to summon out another worm. I already have this ruling corrected. You only can turn your own monsters or your own worms' effects. So don't try that later. But you can summon out Worm Warlord. He's a really fast attacker. Field clear, really. Whenever he attacks and destroys a monster by battle, it negates the monster that was destroyed. And if he was so happened to do it, and you have either no monsters or a monster, you can attack again. But it's only once extra per round. And he's a 2350 beater. So it makes it kind of weird for your opponent to face it. Worm Victory. Basically, you win if you were able to send all the worms to your grave and either get it flipped or get a special summon it. It's a massive attack beater. Now onto the spells. Future Fusion. One of the best milling cards ever for this combo right here. Worm Zero and Victory. It's just epic. that way. Gold Circus. It lets you search for your future fusion and other monsters or traps. I prefer to use it for future fusion, but if I'm looking for a specific light monster, then that's the card I'll do. I'll tell you about how I will get that light monster the moment I activate Gold Circus. I would use 2 pots of Arises because how much I mill, like when I mill with future fusion, then this is an instant 2 draws, and it can prevent yourself from decking out. 2 Shine Palaces. I know they seem even weirder, but it increases the attack of light monsters by 700. By the way, this deck is only 42. This is the reason why I wanted to use Gold Sark to search for a light monster. It's called Light of the Redemption. Give up 800 and select 1 light out of play and add it to your hand. It's also a good card when they play Bottomless. I've so far only played it when they played Bottomless. You pay 800, add the card that they Bottomless, and summon it again, and make them waste their second Bottomless on that same monster when they should be worrying about victory and 0. Book of Eclipse. I know it seems weird, but sometimes it's good defender, and also it can place down your worms that you want, like Apocalypse or Catacos or Lynx. Illuminous Spark. It's a good card, only for lights though, but it's also a bad card for lights, because they lose defense, but gain attack. Basically, I'm using 2 more of these in sideboard for Gravekeepers, because Necro Valley really shuts down this deck really bad, but then again it doesn't, so I'm using Illuminous Spark to boost. Smashing Ground. Of course, it's a meta spell, destroys a monster. Light Wave Tuning. It's an experimental card that I put in here because all of them are mainly 4s and lights, and you can go and synchro summon your Stardust Dragon. Well, it protects all your spells and traps, so why not, you know? You don't need any tuners, you make one. Monster Reborn. Of course, it's a main meta card to bring back Victory, Stardust, or whatever you want to do. Rebirth. It's like another Reborn card, but for reptiles. You can't activate it if you have Honest in your grave, though. That's the bad part. And the other bad part, it kills itself at the end phase. Now, when I found about face-down effect monsters, the best Reborn for them is a Shallow Grave. Since Shallow Grave's at 3, I run 2. Because not that many of them, but I can bring back Victory face down, goes like, attack, oh, it's Victory, you lose your monsters. Ha ha ha. And I do it again. Now on to the traps. Call the Haunted, like a Reborn, but on your opponent's turn. Limit Reverse, the best card to bring back Victory. Since Victory starts out as a 0, bring back Victory, and then goes to 10,000. The highest attack I can possibly get it up to is 11,200. The Transmigration Prophecy is a good card to return spells, traps, or monsters. Or whenever they play their Reborn, return your Reborn and another Reborn type card. You know, technically I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Reborns, so it's pretty easy to get Reborn monsters out. Wawaku is a good card for Link survival, so you can draw a card and let it survive for the next round, for the next 2 cards, so it's +2. Ray of Hope. It works like Transmigration Prophecy, but it adds lights back, so when you really need Victory or somebody to draw cards from, and prevent yourself from decking out, that's the one you use. And Dark Bribe is the way how I protect my cards from getting negated and destroyed, which is a real problem in this deck. But besides that, it's perfectly fine, and it will be tier 2.